Um, just a minor note, I like sharing or when I'm doing slides, I like to have this sidebar so at least everyone can kind of preview what's coming up. Okay, so as mentioned, the title of this event is Design a Career You Actually Enjoy for Generalist World. So a little bit about me before we dive in is I started out my career in nonprofit. I was working with soup kitchens, churches, hospitals, and then I got tired of being broke because that world doesn't pay that much. So I ended up reinventing and I ended up flipping houses for 4 years. And after that, I got tired of the crowd there because they're really just about status and money. And yeah, this got kind of boring. I decided to do something more meaningful again. I transitioned again and ended up running a education company for teens. It's a lot more meaningful. Ended up shutting that down after a couple of years because it's a very tough business. Education services is not very good margins. So I ended up finally transitioning and finally got into tech for a couple of years. And after that, I started prototyping Genius of You. And basically, for the last 3 years, I've been working at Genius of You and building the personality test. So my very circuitous journey, I very much consider myself a generalist and have just done so many things. And on paper, my journey is incredibly confusing. I'm sure many of you relate. So we're on the same page. We're in similar boats. Okay, so that's a little bit about me. Our roadmap, very clear-cut 3 sections here. We'll just start out with some introductory frameworks around career design. And then after that, we'll dive into the results of every single person that shared the results into that form. We'll try to get through everyone. I think some people have been submitting pretty late, so some of them I haven't actually prepped for, but that'll be the bulk of this conversation. It's just a live review and unpacking of the whole framework, and there'll probably be a lot of dialogue, so that'll be very fun and interactive. And then, of course, we'll close with just practical ways to actually implement these results, because it's one thing to have the assessment results, it's another to actually implement it in our career and our lives. And that'll be the goal. We'll try to do that as much as we can. Okay. All right. So let's dive in. So yeah, high level question. How should we approach career design? What are some frameworks that we could incorporate to do this really well? So the first one is Ikigai. Some of you may have heard this before. Some of you, this might be new, but it means that it's a Japanese concept for a reason for being. Let me zoom out. It's comprised of 4 sections, 4 things. The first is what you love. Second is what the world needs. Third is what you can get paid for. And lastly is what you're good at. And in theory, all 4 of those can. So for the purposes of this particular workshop, we will really only be focusing on these 2 because there's plenty of other content, products, and trainings that cover what the world needs and what you can get paid for. But there's much less out there that's about specifically what you love and what you're good at. So that's what we'll be focusing on. And especially so, the central idea of Genius of You is around what you love, but more simply put, it's just enjoyment, right? And so why even talk about enjoyment? Why is that even worth designing around, right? That sounds like a kind of fluffy and soft concept. So why is it even worth being a central idea for career design? So when you enjoy something, you're likely to experience it as effortless. It's easier to have more attention to detail. It's easier to be engaged. It's easier to get lost in the doing. It shouldn't feel like work, because by nature, if you enjoy something, you just kind of you feel that pull. It shouldn't feel like work. And as a result of that, you have less of a need to recover from work, right? So many, at least when I was in my 9 to 5, like so much of my work was super draining because it was intense, and also it was like fundamentally opposite of what I actually enjoyed. It was, just to pay the bills. So I ended up having to work and then go home and recover from work. And it just felt like the cycle of recover to work so that I can work more, so that I can recover to work, and then never feel like I could actually get ahead, so to speak. And lastly, when you enjoy something, it's easier to get really good at the thing, right? If all those are true, it just leads to you spending more time on it and then you getting better at it. And so that's really the central idea, It's easier to become really good at something you enjoy because you will spend more time doing it. So another way to say this is enjoyment is the most effortless path to mastery. So now we'll bring it back to the original Ikigai frame. Um, let's focus on what you love. Let's call that enjoyment. And we just made the case that enjoyment is the most effortless path to mastery. And as a result, it's easier to get good at something when you enjoy it, right? So enjoyment is almost causal, or can be causal, of what you're good at. And when you're good at a thing, it's more likely that you can get paid for it. And when you're good at a thing, you're more likely to find people who have a real pain point around that thing that you're really good at. So that's the central distinction of enjoyment in Ikigai. All right, so that's the first framework. The second framework is Zone of Genius 2.0. There's a common framework out there called the Zone of Genius framework. I'm not going to reiterate it because I'm actually kind of doing a twist on my own version of it. And basically, yes, there's two axes. One is what you enjoy, don't enjoy, and do enjoy, and then what you are good at and then not good at. So starting on the bottom left quadrant of you don't enjoy it and you're not good at it, we will call this the zone of incompetence. So you both don't like it and you're not good at it. And in this particular area, you probably want to avoid when it comes to career design. You don't want to spend much time here. It's just not going to get very far. But that's usually where we start when we're in our very, very early career. Not good at it and we don't enjoy it. That's just part of the journey. The next section would be, so we don't enjoy it, but we're good at it. And this is called the zone of excellence. And this is probably much more common for most of us after we have some years into our career where, you know what, yeah, I don't enjoy being an engineer or being an accountant. I don't enjoy it, but I've now gotten good at it. So now that's a zone of excellence. I can get paid for it. It's a reliable source of career stability, but I don't really enjoy it. And that's what it is for a lot of people. It is ultimately fallback and stability. Okay, and so moving on to the bottom right section is what we do enjoy, but maybe we're not good at, right? And this would be for a lot of people what we do in our free time, hobbies, stuff like that. And we would call this the future zone of genius, because the premise is that a zone of genius is what you are good at, right? And also enjoy. So in this section of future zones of genius, we basically classify this as something that you can do for your long game. Basically, it's something that if you invest more time in, maybe fast forward 5 to 10 years, that can be something that you can start incorporating into your career. So in my particular case, if any of you read my bio, I said at the very end of my bio that I'm rotating between 11 languages on Duolingo. 11 languages is obviously too much for most people. Most people are not even focusing on one language. Why am I doing 11? Well, I'm playing a very, very, very long game. I'm thinking, hey, fast forward 10, 15 years, I will have a lot more competence in those things. And then a lot more career doors will open up for me once I develop that. But of course, short term means nothing, right? It's just a hobby. It's just like a cool, fun factoid, right? And so, but that's this classification of future zones of genius. The last category is, of course, what we are good at and enjoy, and that is the zone of genius. And this is the foundation of reinventing yourself, or this is the ideal of what we're all striving for, right? And so that is really the focus of today, which is what is in the category of what we enjoy, regardless of whether we're good at it or not. What is in the category of what we enjoy? And that is the intention of the entire assessment. For those of you that have taken it, that's what we're trying to point to. Of this particular genius, this speaks to this category of things you enjoy. So, any questions before we dive into the results? Okay, no questions yet. All right, we will transition into.
No, we have some people typing, but I don't want to disencourage people. Keep typing.
Yeah, and Ryan, if y'all are in the chat, Ryan put a funny Venn diagram of our life, of his life. Yes, I believe you can just go to the site right now called geniusofview.com, and you can take.
I can share the link, but I purposefully not sharing it because I'm waiting. I don't want you to go and do the assessment right now. But don't worry, you'll get an email afterwards with the recording and with the slides and everything, which also includes the link to do the assessments.
Yeah. All right. Okay, let's transition to the live review of results. This will be the bulk of our session. Okay, so some of you have taken both assessments. Some of you have also submitted it to the sheet. And so we will go over everyone's scores. We will take a lot of time to try to unpack this whole framework. But for now, the first thing I want to start with is actually just getting feedback from people here around these basically custom one-liners. I basically went through everyone's results, both assessments, and basically tried to synthesize into a single line what I think, how I would describe you in a single line based off of your results. It's almost like you could say it's like your edge. It could be your like professional summary, but it's meant to be like an oversimplified picture of what you seem to enjoy. And if you are actually here or like if you actually submitted it and you are here and you would like to chime in, I would love for you to unmute and share about it. So I don't know if I'm saying your name right, Shavi. My conclusion for you is a strategic breadth-based solo builder. And if you're okay, I think you're in the chat. Curious if you can unmute and share whether that resonates or not, or you can put it in the chat if you're not comfortable going on audio.
Am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, hi. I'm Chavi. So you got that. Yeah, close. That actually sounds perfect for me because I wasn't a solo builder before, but I have kind of become one now. So I do work with teams, but I don't have a full-time role as such. I've transitioned to working with contracts. So I work with a bunch of different companies, but I have a lot of flexibility over my own time. And I can also dabble in a bunch of different things instead of just having one specific role. So love that. That's what.
Okay, glad it resonates. And basically after this section, I'm going to break down how I arrived to all of the one-liners. So everyone gets a better understanding of how I arrived at this and how it plays out. Okay, Joa, curious, hopefully you're here. Yes, proactive, attuned manager with high standards. Curious if Ajoa is here.
You haven't unmuted yourself.
Thanks. Yeah, maybe the high standards bit shocked me a bit. Not that it's a bad thing to have high standards, but I think it's maybe because I've got quite a strong moral compass, perhaps, and therefore, but I'm not under the illusion that just because I have those standards that everybody else around me does. But yeah, the rest of it is pretty strong.
Okay, so maybe slight adjustment on the high standards. Okay.
Yeah, it was good.
All right, Dimitra, build tons of things with people. Curious if you're here.
Can you hear me now? You can hear me now, I guess. Yes. If you consider that I'm the only one happy to have meetings and being with people, kind of resonates.
Okay. That I'm not surprised based off of the scores. And again, yeah, we'll break it down. Okay, great to hear. Wendy, wise, people-tuned, build for impact. Curious if you're here, Wendy. Okay.
I don't think we have Wendy in the room.
Okay. Christine Bauer, strategically build everything everywhere all at once. That's kind of a play, but
that sounds about right. I am definitely an extreme generalist with a very wide breadth and an intense lifelong learner.
Amazing, amazing. All right, thank you for adding that color. Jessica and Lee, actually, you two have almost identical scores, so I couldn't help but just give you guys the same one. As much as I hate kind of duplicating it. Curious if Jessica or Lee are here.
I'm not sure if both are here because can't see them on the list.
Noella, holistic strategy, knowing, and vision. Okay. And maybe Nancy Pants. Infinite creative vision and strategy.
Sorry, I was talking and I clearly was still on mute. I'm Noah, and I was just saying I do agree with this. I spent the last 12 years helping people build their visions, and so just like breaking problems down into manageable chunks is kind of what I do, and I copy paste that skill set.
Nice, like actually vision. So that's what you do. That's great. Okay. Okay, Nancy Pants, infinite creative vision and strategy.
Yeah. So, Brandon, I've been wiping tears off my face since you put this screen up. Something about those first 3 words. Yeah, they hit me hard. That's what I feel. And I've only been able to lamely say it, like, oh, imagination for days, but it didn't really capture what it was. Like, all the bots can F off. I don't know. And I'm curious about the strategy part, though, because that's where I feel like I can't bring it back from outer space, bring it back from the moon. I usually rely on somebody else with a little better business sense or ROI to kind of lasso me a bit.
Sure. We'll talk about it. Thank you for sharing. I'm very glad that it resonated so deeply for you. Yeah, we will break it down and we can spend some time there. Okay. And then last but not least, Dana. Deep bag, intuitive, people up-leveler.
Hi, everybody. Good to see everyone.
Hello.
Hi, thank you so much for that. What does deep bag mean? I mean,
yeah, this is more slang. Deep bag is like slang for like deep bag of tricks is what the context is. So it usually comments on someone who has like a lot of skill in a lot of domains, lots of tools on their belt, kind of like a MacGyver. So deep bag is just like big tool bag, basically.
Love that. That is definitely, if not on the money, then definitely very much near the bullseye. Okay,
great to hear. Alrighty, so that's always fun because people tend to feel pretty seen and validated for them for how they're wired. And now we'll basically transition into how did I come up with these one-liners just based off of not knowing any of you and just looking at a bunch of numbers. Okay, so we'll transition, but we'll actually start with me. We'll start with me as an example. So mine, I gave a one-liner to myself just looking at my own numbers, and mine is solve anything, sees around corners. So we'll actually start with that as an example. So starting here, so why solve anything, sees around corners? So solve anything is because so dreamer and ideator are basically the two geniuses that are most heavy around ideation and solving. So ideator is come up with ways to solve immediate problems. Dreamer is more big picture, long-term vision. So both immediate term, short-term, and long-term problem solving, basically. So when you can combine that with deconstructor and alchemist, deconstructor is about thinking in the frameworks. So it's very heady. Alchemist is about a lot of breadth. So it's like heady, a lot of breadth, a lot of problem solving. So it's solve anything, oversimplified into solve anything. And then the second part, which is sees around corners, is assessor, which is about the act of pausing, reflecting, discerning, reading the situation, combined with this framework approach. So basically sees around corners, because there's always a mental model around it. So that's the overview of how I broke that down. Some caveats, just as like whenever people take the assessment and they're kind of wondering about their negative scores, you can see that for me, I have a -9 for presence. Again, this assessment is about enjoyment and not competence. And so this just means that I don't get that much enjoyment out of experiencing subtle emotion. It costs me a bit more effort. So that doesn't mean that I can't label my emotions. It doesn't mean I can't talk about them. It means that it costs more attention to pay attention to it and then express it and talk about it. So again, enjoyment and effort is the big thing. And so my deconstructor is so high, it means that I just think in frameworks all the time. It's fun, it's easy. And maybe for someone who's low, like Dimitra, which this is -1, maybe, yeah, it probably costs Dimitra a bit more effort to think in frameworks, right? It has nothing to do with competence. It has everything to do with effort. So those are some examples. And then I'll do one more example for myself is I'm incredibly low executor. I'm a -12. So the definition is around getting things done even without intrinsic interest. So it means that I need to care in order to get a thing done. And so how is it possible that I've started 4 companies and I'm a -12 executor? Well, it means that the things that I started, the companies that I started, I cared a lot about it. And that's what made it easier to get the things done. Right. So lots of nuance. Those are some examples coming from my own scores. Okay. So let's go into Xavi. Xavi's one-liner was strategic, breadth-based solo builder. So how did I get strategic, breadth-based solo builder? So builder is coming from the artisan side. So it's about expression, uniqueness, and creation. So that's the builder component. Strategic is the deconstructor side. So strategic builder. And then breadth-based. So alchemist, as you can see, like there's so many people in Generous World that are very high alchemists. That makes sense because this is about breadth of learning. So exposed to a lot of ideas, a lot of things, experiences. So breadth-based strategic, breadth-based builder. And the reason why I say solo is because these two geniuses right here, cultivator and supporter. Cultivator is like caring for the emotional morale state of the team. So caring about people emotionally and motivationally, and supporter is about like the practical side. If someone needs help, they're overwhelmed, they're stressed. Are you going to step in and support them? And so these are the 2 lowest for Xavi. So this suggests that Xavi probably prefers to work with people who are really, really competent and doesn't really need her support, her active support, and just prefers to just do her own thing. And so again, it's not around whether she's competent around it or not. It just means that it costs more effort. And so that's where I get the solo builder. Okay. So proactive attune manager with high standards. So proactive attune manager. So the attuned manager is mostly coming from presence and coach. Presence is about enjoyment of subtle emotion. So very emotionally attuned. It's just the lens of emotion colored in terms of all the interactions with people. So very attuned to how people are feeling. And coach is about impact on others. So there's this proactive support of like, how do I care for you? How do I move you? How do I support you, impact you? So that's the proactive attuned manager part. And then manager is also supported by having high cultivator, high supporter. So very proactive in caring for how people are doing emotionally, proactive in caring about how people are feeling in terms of overwhelmed, and very willing to step in to support. And then the high standards part is really anchored on revealer. People who are high in revealer tend to just be like, this needs to be addressed. This needs to be addressed. This is a little off. So that's high standards is maybe not the best framing, but it just speaks to nothing really escapes their attention. And they're very, very willing to call it out. So all that combines to proactive attuned manager with very high standards. Okay. And then Dimitra, building tons of things with people. So Dimitra right here. Actually, let me just minimize these. Dimitra. Building tons of things with people. Okay, so alchemist, as we've mentioned, is about breadth. So many of us generalists score high on that. So lots of exposure to lots of things. And artisan being the second, which is about expression, creation. So this is the build a lot of things. So likes to build things here, likes to build a lot of it, and in a lot of ways, maybe through a lot of different mediums, maybe. So that's the build tons of things. And then the with people part comes from cultivator and support. Right? So similar as the person before, having high cultivator, this is caring for the emotional state of people. And then supporter is around practically supporting. So very team oriented, these two geniuses. So as a result, you got build tons of things, which is alchemist, artisan, with other people, which is cultivator, supporter. Okay. So Wendy, wise, people tuned, build for impact. So people attuned is presence and coach. We've already seen this before. So attunement to people, how people feel, and proactively thinking about what impact that we have on other people is coach. People wise, people attuned to build for impact. So this is the people attuned and build for impact is right here. And the wise part is coming from the assessor. Assessor is basically pausing, reflecting, hey, what's actually happening? We're in a really sticky situation. What's actually going on? People who score low on this are are less likely to ask those questions around like, hey, what's really happening underneath? And so this is where the wise part comes. All right, so that's how we get wise, people tuned, build for impact. Okay. Christine, strategically build everything everywhere all at once. So let's go to Christine. Christine. Okay. So build everything everywhere all at once. Artisan, we've already covered. It's about building, expression, creation, breadth, as we've already mentioned. Alchemist, so many of us are about breadth. So build everything. Build and build a lot. Build in a lot of ways. Build with a lot of mediums. And then the everything everywhere all at once is like I have so many high ideators like solving short-term problems, and dreamer is long-term. So if you have someone that wants to build everything right now to solve the current situation and also is also thinking very future term, like 5-10 years in the future, and they're also wanting to build in a lot of ways, I would imagine they just have a ton of ideas, short-term and long-term. They want to build everything, and that's where their natural energy goes. So that's where I get build strategic. Okay, sorry, I missed the strategic. The strategic part is the deconstructor side. So despite wanting to do so many things, there's still a framework in how Christine may approach how she goes about building. So that's the strategic part. Strategic. Okay, I'm going to skip Jessica and Lee. We're going to go to Noella. So holistic strategy, knowing, and vision. Noella, holistic strategy, knowing, vision. Okay, so the holistic part is coming from mostly somatic. Somatic, this is a new one. This is actually the rarest genius of the bunch. The fewest amount of people lead with this genius. So it's not very common that people have this very high. Somatic is about intuition, gut instinct, allowing things to flow. This is probably one of the most misunderstood geniuses in our modern society. So that's where the holistic comes from, because there's just an intuitive knowing about how things should be aligned. It could be within her own internal life. It could be around the social interaction, the social dynamics, the structure that she's in. There's just a holistic, intuitive knowing about how things ought to be. So that's the holistic. And holistic knowing, technically, is both of those. Strategy is, again, coming from the deconstructor side, having a very structured, framework approach to things. That's very conducive to strategy. And then lastly, it's the vision. So vision, I'm basically combining now ideator and dreamer, which is both, again, short-term and long-term vision about how to solve things. So in combination, that's how we get holistic strategy, knowing, and vision. Nancy Pants, infinite creative vision and strategy. Okay, so how do we get that? Infinite creative vision and strategy. So this is the creative part. This is the strategy part. We've covered this. Deconstructor is about frameworks and strategy. So a lot of structured approach. Alchemist is about breadth. We've covered this quite a bit. So lots of variety, lots of depth, or so not depth, lots of breadth, exposure to a lot of things, lots of different experiences. And so this is vision. Again, similar to the person before, vision, lots of ideas short term, lots of ideas long term. So that's how you combine that all is there's a lot of ideas for solving things. It's creative. It's infinite in terms of the alchemist side, which is about breadth, and the strategy part, which is deconstructor. And last but not least, Dana, deep bag, intuitive, people up-leveler. So deep bag, we've already commented. It's around having a lot of tools. So that's what the alchemist is for. Being exposed to a lot of things, a lot of ideas, lots of knowledge. So deep bag, intuitive, people up-leveler. So the people up-leveler is mostly the coach, having an impact on other people, combined with cultivator. So there's this like proactive energy, two-pronged proactive energy to improve people and care for people and how they're doing. And then the intuitive part is the somatic. So this being third is still pretty strong. So this suggests that there's an intuitive approach about how all of this happens. So there's the deep bag, which is the alchemist, intuitive, which is somatic, people up-leveler, which is the coach, and cultivator. All right. That's all we got. Any questions going through everyone who has submitted?
Yeah, we have Martin Dimitra on the queue, but also Kieran asks on the chat, how would you assess alchemist, artisan with superhuman pursuit of challenge and pursuing your own limits?
Yeah, so with alchemist, so we're looking at these three definitions: alchemist, artisan. It's these three. So basically, if I were to summarize those three, it's just like you want to build maximal things. So you're not just building anything. You want to build the utmost grand solutions or designs. Like it speaks to like the intensity at which you want to build. So that would be the superhuman artisan combo. So you're building things that like maybe stretch people's imagination, building that people have never done before, and it's like very, very extensive. That's how they in theory would combine. And then the alchemist and superhuman, how they would combine is, well, it's kind of a challenge of you want to learn everything, but you also want to go deep. So alchemist superhumans tend to have this challenge of like, I want to do everything and learn everything, and I want to be the master of all of them. And they tend to have that challenge of, it's a very classic generalist problem, but in the extreme sense, because you also want to be really good at all of it. So that's how I would summarize those three. So question from Chabi, are there any super rare combinations you've come across? In terms of general rarity, I can speak to some of the stats. Somatic, like I've already mentioned, is the rarest genius for people to lead in. I think it's like literally 6% of the population. So very, very rare. Second rarest is superhuman. And so it's not a surprise that basically when you look at the aggregate in terms of the colors, yeah, very, very few people lead with superhuman or somatic. They're just the two rarest ones. So basically any combination involving somatic and superhuman would already be a form of a rare combo. And then like in the very, very unicorn sense, there's some people that are like, there's literally, I think maybe one or two people in the database that are both superhuman and somatic. Like those are the two highest. Like I would say that is probably the rarest of rare Pokemons. So that's on the genius side. And then on the work assessment side, I believe Dreamer and Executor are the two rarest. So Dreamer is around very, very big picture vision. It's probably the most entrepreneurial of the geniuses. And Executor is, again, getting things done even without intrinsic interest. It's kind of just like plodding away like a machine, just get it done. Yeah, and there's a few, I guess, less than, definitely not the majority. It's not the strong suit of this group. And so for me, I really appreciate high executors. My VA, my virtual assistant, I've worked with for a couple of years, she scores like 15 on executor, and I love her for that. And she scores low on dreamer and ideator, and I'm decently high on both of those. So we're like almost like a match made in heaven. I come up with ideas, she does so much of the execution, and I really appreciate it.
Let's go on the queue, and then let's get the questions from there. We have Marta. Make sure to unmute yourself, Marta.
Hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Question is about the assessment itself, because I see that you have two tables. Basically, you read and analyze the tables together, but you have separate assessments. So what's the difference?
The main difference is that when I built the Genius assessment first, and I was basically trying to figure out like what are the most useful applications for this. And so, of course, we were talking about the idea of like, okay, how does it play out in a work context? And I realized that when trying to make inferences about how people, like if you score high on coach, for example, how does that actually show up at work? And I realized that of these 7, it doesn't speak to all the dimensions that show up in a workplace. Like there's just sometimes no correlation. If you're high on coach, like, does that mean you're good at strategy? I don't know. Like, I don't think there's any correlation there. If you're score high on coach, you probably err towards maybe like being good with people, but I don't know if that's a perfect correlation, right? So as a result, because it's so fuzzy, like it's just hard to attribute that like people who are high on this genius will show up this way in work. It made more sense in my mind to just create an explicitly work assessment that was around all the dimensions of work. So I feel like it just better speaks to how someone will actually show up in the practical work side. So that was the thinking behind creating 2 assessments.
So I haven't taken the assessment yet, so maybe the questions. So the Genius assessment is more about like general ideas, and the other one is related to the work environment.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So like in the most ideal context, there's high alignment. There should be high alignment between how someone scores on the Genius assessment and how they work. But the reality is that for people like for a lot of us, we put on a different work face when we're at work, right? And so that would explain sometimes the divide between what this Genius assessment suggests and where someone actually scores on the work side.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions?
Dimitra's question. Oh, sorry. Dimitra's question.
Yeah, we have about 6 minutes for questions.
Yeah. I wanted to ask because we went through the numbers. First, the first thing that came in my mind was why some are red and why they are green. I can get, I assume, but the white ones, I'm surprised. And then the second one, for example, I was surprised because on the work assessment, you mentioned the cultivator and the supporter for me, for example.
Yeah.
But not the revealer, which is the highest in the work assessment. And I wanted to say like how correlates and what and how.
Yeah. So some people, for multiple people, there were stronger geniuses that I just omitted because the reality is when coming up with one-liners, like the intention is to oversimplify, and it's sometimes just more clunky to just add an extra word, and I'd rather have it just be pithy. So that's not any deep commentary on like how you actually operate. It's just me taking shortcuts because like it's just hard to create one-liners that capture every dimension. So specifically for real revealer, yeah, like it makes sense. That is your highest. I just didn't incorporate it into it. It's of course probably going to be a central part in terms of how you operate. But yeah, revealer is about calling out problems and concerns. So someone who's low on revealer, like me, is more likely to be much more judicious around what you share and surface during meetings. It maybe needs a higher bar of like, oh, it needs to be like It needs to reach a tipping point or a critical mass before I point out this concern. High revealers don't have that filter, or are less likely to have that filter. They're just like, you know what, I see it. It needs to be said. I don't care. It needs to be said. It's just going to bother me if I don't say it. But they're more likely to operate like that.
Can I point out that awkward moment that exactly what it says is exactly what I did just now? And
yeah, yes, you did the thing. You did the revealer thing just now. Yes, yeah. So exactly. So case in point. Mm-hmm.
Dana, don't forget to unmute yourself. Let me find you on the screen. Are you still there?
Yes, I'm still here. Thank you so much, Brandon, for all of the explanations so far. It's been really fascinating listening to the combinations for everybody, and then you coming up with the one-liner. Just back to this deep bag, because I'm on that now.
Sure.
What would be, in your opinion, maybe 3 keywords or bullet points? Because I do have a challenge when people ask me what do I do, kind of mostly either go with what's of most interest to me at the current time, or what I'm working on. So I feel like I've got almost like a super breadth, and that causes challenges with communicating. Well, what is it that you actually do? So what kind of 3 key points would you maybe focus on to language that? That'd be really helpful. Thanks.
So I think where a lot of generalists get in trouble is the intersection of there is interest as a baseline of like, oh, are you interested in this thing? And for people who are high alchemists, there's a lot of things that we could say we're interested in. But in terms of priority when it comes to career, I think it's like making a clear decision of like, you know what, for now, in the short term, what I want to focus on, what would I like to focus on, what feels important to me to focus on, what feels strategic to focus on. So those are some caveats to narrow that frame of mind when it comes to a career decision, which is, well, what do you want to prioritize? We understand that you are interested and enjoy a wide breadth of things, but currently, what is important for you to prioritize? And maybe that frame might help.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, and then when it comes to, I guess, arriving to the decision about how you do that, there's a lot of frameworks for deciding around what you want to prioritize in the short term. Like maybe in your early career, you probably want to focus on growth. Maybe in your later career, you want to focus on more meaning. And maybe if you're like running short on runway because you've been unemployed for a while, like you don't care. You're just trying to focus on, hey, what's just going to pay the bills and what's the most likely, what I'm the most qualified for, and how can I just solve the pain point of bills, right? And we're all in different positions, so like different frameworks for different life situations.
Thank you.
Right. Let's get
one last question.
Yeah, let's get Noella's question next. Also, I was just plugging in the chat, but I would like to plug live as well. Next cohort of Generalist World will be 8 weeks of masterclasses on telling your generalist story. So after you reveal your zone of geniuses and one-liners, you can join us to learn about how to actually articulate that generalist story with us.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so my question is, I have some immediate resistance around the idea of like working on my lower scores. I'm very interested in doubling down on my strengths.
Yeah.
Curious what your approach is and like where you see value in working on the kind of lower scores, or if there is value in doing that.
So yeah, working on lower scores is kind of a misnomer in a sense. It's almost like asking me, like I'm -9 on presence, right? So again, this is about enjoyment and not competence. So to reframe your question, it's like, can I work on enjoying emotions more? I think there's a case to be made that like maybe I can, but to a certain extent, like if that feels effortful for me, like maybe that's just a fixed thing. But maybe to try to answer the essence of your question is now competence, right? So because this costs more effort, it is true that in my early 20s, I was very incompetent with emotions. I couldn't even name them. If someone asked me, "Hey, Brandon, how are you feeling?" I would tell them what I think, and they would be like, "Hey, you didn't mention an emotion," and I'm like, "What are you talking about? What is that?" Right? So I literally had low EQ, low fluency, low competence in experiencing and paying attention to emotion. So did I work on that? Yes, I did. I spent a lot of my 20s working on that. So now I feel pretty competent with emotion, but it has not fundamentally changed the effort that it costs. It still costs me a lot of energy to do that. My girlfriend would know. We've had a lot of conversations about this. So to directly answer your question, should you work on your low scores? I think if you are not enjoying it, I don't know. I think there's diminishing returns on working on things that you don't enjoy because it's just going to cost you a lot of energy. Maybe you're in a life stage where you feel spacious and like, you know what? Yeah, like I have some extra energy. Let me devote that extra energy to working on things I don't enjoy. So maybe that's a good fit for you. But for the vast majority of people, this is more of a competence question. So you can be low on score on this assessment, but still be competent in it. So that's a kind of an evaluation that you have to gauge for yourself of, even if this is low for me, do I still feel pretty competent in it? And there's the answer to your question. If you are competent around it, then great. No extra work needed. And if you don't feel competent in it, now it's a question of assessing, okay, is it currently a priority for me to address that? Is it important to me? Is the upside high enough for me to prioritize that right now? If it is, okay, then maybe work on it. So that's my long-winded answer to should I work on my low scores?
That's helpful. Thank you.
Okay. All righty. So let us move towards wrapping up.
I also have one question, Brandon. I think we talked about this last time as well, but what is your recommendation on retaking the assessment, or like change of seasons, change of life?
I think, I've noticed, and I've had qualitative feedback that people tend to respond a little differently when they're in a completely different life stage. So I would say these assessments are a current snapshot of how you currently feel about things. And so it's highly likely that if you're in a much different environment with much different incentives and stretches you in different ways, you might find some of your scores shifting. I'm skeptical someone's highest will now be their lowest, or their lowest will become their highest, but you'll probably see shifts in either direction. Like in my particular case, like my somatic used to be maybe 0 or negative, and then I basically spent 2 years just immersing myself and feeling through things, learning from people who are much more intuitive, and now it's basically my third. So before it was like my fourth or fifth, and now it's my third. So it'll move, but I don't think it'll ever outpace my deconstructor. I'm maybe it can, but I'm skeptical. I'm open to it, but yeah, that's my current stance.
I'll let you wrap it up.
Okay. All righty. Okay. So some takeaways and reminders, right? Okay. Again, I've said this many times. This assessment is about enjoyment, not competence. There's plenty of assessments out there that are about competence. This is not that. It's about enjoyment. And the reality is people can enjoy things you dread. So you guys all saw on that chart, there's some people who were green in areas that other people were red. Didn't just realize that I didn't answer someone's question, but the green was just like color coding based off of Excel's like conditional formatting. So it's basically the higher scores were green, the white scores were basically your middle scores, and the red scores were basically your lower ones. And it was conditionally formatted per person. So it's only comparing you against yourself as opposed to you against the whole. So just going back to that note. So yeah, people can enjoy things you dread. So you can use this assessment to build complementary and effective teams for yourself. So like I mentioned, my VA is very high on executor because I am not. And that is a very good complementary combo. Right. And so it's great to have that visibility. And so for those of you that have already taken it, there's literally 50 pages of commentary for each, or for all of the geniuses combined. Like you can just open all these tabs. There's tons of commentary in terms of how to apply and understand different geniuses, including your own. There's exercises that I built for every single one. There's personal and professional applications. There's so much there. I personally wrote all of it. So it's designed to help you. So if you haven't already, take some time to do that. But yeah, you can basically develop more appreciation for other geniuses. And yeah, my relationship with my mom or relationship with my girlfriend have improved because I understand their scores and therefore what they enjoy more and what they're more prone to, what comes more easily for them, right? So lots of great applications. Okay, concrete tactic, negotiation tactic. Okay, so do 15 minutes of reflection and ask yourself, what do I do at work that falls under my highest and lowest scoring geniuses? Right. So doing this just creates more self-awareness. And once you do this exercise, once you label, okay, like this task falls into this genius, this task is, oh, that I don't enjoy that. That's why I don't enjoy it. The tactic is in making that more aware to you, you can now talk to your team about how you can trade doing more of what you enjoy for doing less of what you don't enjoy. Right. Again, when you enjoy a thing, you can do more of it. It feels less like work. You can do, it's more effortless. Right. So you can even make an offer of like, I will do twice of what I enjoy in exchange for doing one item of the thing that I don't enjoy. Right. And of course, there's a lot of practicals to this negotiation to this, but that's the high level idea. If you can trade the thing that you don't enjoy for doing twice as much of a thing you do enjoy energetically, that's probably an even exchange. That'll actually probably do a lot for your system. So that's a concrete tactic. Another concrete tactic is a different 15-minute reflection of all the professional competencies I have, where do they fall on the genius framework? So now we're talking about competence, remember. We're shifting now to competence, right? So this was the original framework around zone of genius. So like stuff you don't enjoy over here, stuff you do enjoy over here, stuff you're not good at on the bottom, stuff you are good at the top, right? So categorizing all your actual skills to be like, oh, I'm not good at this thing. Oh, I'm really good at this thing, but I don't enjoy it. So categorizing that. And the reason for that is that helps you determine, hey, how should I relate to this skill when it comes to my career, right? The things that I'm good at, but I don't enjoy, great. This is my fallback. Like I can always come back to this to make money, to find stability. And then like, oh, things that I enjoy, but not that good at. Okay, invest time and kind of like my Duolingo languages. Like I'm playing the 10-year game for this. And of course, things that you are already good at and enjoy. This is if you are later in your career and want to design a more meaningful and enjoyable career, hence the title, this is what you want to design around. So those are two concrete reflection tactics. Okay, and then just more broad approaches. Some of this is repetition, but one is, again, step-by-step, slowly negotiate parts of your current work situation or Jesus. The more awareness you have around that, you can start nudging it over, right? And so this is like a slower approach, step-by-step. Second would be the hard pivot, which is, I'm tired. I don't think my current workplace will support me in this. So it's time to look elsewhere, to a place that will support my geniuses. Another is build your own sandbox, DIY, around your, so using side projects and side hustles to focus fully on your geniuses. And maybe you will have to build a team around that. So like in my case with my virtual assistant. And the last one is, like I've already mentioned, the long game. Develop your future zones of genius for use in the future. Okay, so this is a high-level overview, of course. And of course, we are now nearing the end of the workshop. And so if you want more support in actually implementing all of these, there's a few ways I want to offer. One is a 20-minute one-on-one deep dive where we just talk. We can talk about these specific things I just mentioned. We can talk about what your scores mean in more depth. We can talk about how to negotiate your current situation. We can talk about how to hard pivot if you do want to do that. We can talk about how to design your own sandbox if that's what you want to do that. And lastly, how to design systems to play the long game effectively. If that's of interest, and of course, ask me any questions. This slide deck will be forwarded to everyone after, but if you want to quickly book time with me, you can scan this QR code right now, or later on, you can click this link and you can book time with me. Again, this is free. Everyone here can take advantage of this. You just have to find time on my calendar. The second way is a 45-minute career genius GPT sneak peek. That's a mouthful, but basically I have been building custom GPTs to basically infinitely scale personalization. And this is a beta, so it's all about feedback. There's no cost. It's just your time and willingness to give me feedback. the handful of people that have tried this have been really happy with it. But basically, you can find personality fitted jobs and titles that you never knew existed. So I'm using your personality test scores as the premise. We can identify key gaps in your resume and how to address them, get a personalized skills roadmap to reach your dream roles, and basically concrete tactics to maximize your current role where you're at. And of course, there's some bonuses. I'm working on actually multiple GPTs. If there's time, we can talk about just your overall work style and romance style, if that's of interest. So another QR code. Again, this will be sent out. I'm going to skip this section because we are coming to near the end. But lastly, I would love your feedback. Feel free to scan this QR code. There's literally only one required question. I'm always trying to improve. So I also dropped the link in the chat. There's only one required question. There's a few that are optional. But yeah, just want to know how this went for you on a scale of 1 to 10. And as people fill that out, I'm happy to stick around and answer any closing questions people have.
Perfect. Thank you, Brendan. And thank you, everyone. As Brendan said, I'll be just drafting the email now. We'll be sending to everyone with the recording and the slide deck, etc. Just awesome. I think there's one question about Orlando in the chat that is kind of lingering. So feel free to take a look at that.
Yes.
And Adoa as a follow-up question, I guess.
Yes. I'll stick around a little for questions as people fill out feedback. Yeah. Oh, is this the correlation? Orlando's question about correlation. Okay. What is the correlation between skill, enjoyment versus praise? The assessment, I felt like the questions were framed around praise, which as deconstructor I don't need, but I do enjoy. Could say what is correlation? I do not remember the questions being framed around praise. Most of the questions should be around enjoyment and some bits of how frequent are you doing a thing and how effortless a thing feels. I think there's the coach genius is the only genius that has something around praise, around gratitude. So that might be so to answer the question between skill, enjoyment versus praise, I think there's some correlation between enjoyment. Like I said in the beginning, the more you enjoy a thing, the more likely you are to put time in it. So maybe the more likely you are to be good at it. Versus praise, there's probably some positive correlation. If you're good at a thing, people will recognize you for it. But these are all hunches, and don't quote me on that. Okay. And then I think did Ajoa have a question?
Yeah, which one corresponded with being strategic?
Deconstructor.
Was it deconstructor?
Yeah, deconstructor.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions?
Oh, sorry, one follow-up, and that was on that side. So on the other side, what would the equivalent of that be?
I think I would say it's split. It's a split between like dreamer, ideator, and assessor have some elements of what goes into strategy.
Got you.
Ideator is around like short-term problem solving. So like once you've defined a strategy, you need someone to actually like design the steps, the in-between steps to like make it a day-to-day reality. So like that's a component of ideator.
Yeah.
But the dreamer is probably maybe the most heavily responsible, where it's just like seeing the long-term implications. So I would say maybe it's like 40% dreamer, 40% assessor, 20% ideator. If you had to make me like force it into defining what strategy is using those frameworks, because assessor is about, well, what is the feasibility and efficacy and likelihood of this idea actually working?
Got you.
So the dreamer is like ideaphoric in the long term.
Yes.
Assessor is like, well, reality.
Yeah.
And then ideator is like, okay, well, implications and like, how do I make it practical today?
Great. That's perfect. Thanks so much.
That's a good question. No one's asked me that before. Okay. Any other questions?
There's lots of praise for you on the chat. Well, I will prompt everyone to book a call with you if they have any follow-up questions.
Yeah, feel free.
And we'll wrap up the call. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Thank you, Brendan, for doing this again. I feel like we're going to have this again and again in the future. As long as
and if you leave enough feedback, it will keep improving. Each iteration has gotten slightly better. So.
Exactly. Yeah, I can see the difference from the previous one as well. Like it gets more tactical as we go, which I'm loving it.
Yes.
Perfect. Well, hope to see you at our next events, everyone. Thanks for taking your time and sticking around with us, and have a great rest of the day. Bye.
All right. Thank you, Etchi.